It's time to build Pit from Kid Icarus and Smash Bros. As a playable character in Dungeons & Dragons. There's a bit of lore to dive into, but in general, he's pretty straightforward. As always, if you want to follow along with the character sheet, it's available up on Patreon, link down below. But when it comes to choosing a species, that's pretty darn obvious. We're going with an Aasimar, because they're basically just angels. This gives us a whole bunch of features, like dark vision to obviously see in the dark, healing hands to have a pool of healing for ourselves or somebody else if we need to, with a pool of d4s equal to your proficiency bonus. You gain the Light Bearer cantrip, which is pretty fitting considering you worship a goddess of light, and you get the feature Celestial Revelation. So, starting at level 3, as a bonus action, you can transform yourself. It lasts for 1 minute, and you can get things like Necrotic Shroud if you're leaning into more of a Dark Pit, because this Dungeons & Dragons build should be able to be applicable to both Dark Pit and normal Pit, because Dark Pit is just a mirror version and a clone of the original Pit, so I don't want to do a whole different build just to make them a little darker. But Necrotic Shroud gives you some flightless wings that can inflict the frightened condition on your enemies, or you can choose to transform, giving yourself Inner Radiance, dealing radiant damage to everything within 10 feet of you, or you can bust out some Heavenly Wings, so you get a flying speed equal to your walking speed. Now technically, Pit is initially not destroyed because of his inability to fly in the original Kid Icarus game, but that ability is temporarily gained here and there, and is temporarily usable in Smash Bros. So having a temporarily available Heavenly Wings feels very fitting. Also, while your transformation is active, you can do some extra damage equal to your proficiency bonus once per turn. That damage can be necrotic or radiant, depending on if you're going with normal or dark Pit. When it comes to a background, I was very tempted to go with Acolyte, but that doesn't give us truly good ability scores that I want. And considering you're a bodyguard, I was also tempted to go with Guard for a background, but that doesn't work either. So I'm going to get the next best thing. As part of the Goddess of Light's royal bodyguard, you're technically kind of a soldier. So that's the background we're going to go with. This gives us skill proficiencies in athletics and intimidation. It gives us the savage attacker feat, so when you hit a creature with a weapon, you can roll the damage dice twice and take either roll, and finally boost up some ability scores that are actually going to be helpful for us, but we'll dive into those later. Now it's time to dive into the class. You are a loyal servant of the Goddess of Light. So we're going to be diving into Cleric, or at least we're going to be starting with Cleric. This allows us some spell casting right away, so we're going to grab Light and Sacred Flame, and Sacred Flame can be applicable to something like Pit's weapon ability with Violet Palm. We're going to be focusing more on the weapons you can get access to from Smash Bros, but it doesn't hurt to get access to some of the other weapons he gets throughout the games, because he gets a lot of them. But I also want to grab Word Radiance. This does damage in an area of effect around you. You can think of this as swirling your scimitars to do damage all around. When it comes to some first level spells, to launch out a light-based arrow, I want to grab Guiding Bolt right away. We'll be able to replicate this with an actual arrow soon, but Guiding Bolt will help us for now. It does some radiant damage, and when it hits an enemy, it gives advantage on a follow-up attack. And Pit has some shield ability, so we want to emphasize this with the spell Shield of Faith. I was tempted to also grab the shield spell through maybe a feat, but that seems like kind of a waste just for the shield spell. Then, to get some easy access to healing, grab Cure Wounds and Healing Word. It really never hurts to have them. Also from first level of Cleric, you get to choose a Divine Order. This is to focus more on either spellcasting or martial type stuff with weapons. So we're actually going to go with the Protector Divine Order. This gives us proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor. And even though there are some versions of Pit in the Kid Icarus games or show that might depict him with some heavier armor, most of the time he's wearing a toga. So I think we're going to be sticking with the light armor. However, we do need that martial weapon access. This will give us bows and scimitars and any other weapon that we might be picking up for Pit. Then instead of jumping into second level of Cleric, we're going to be multiclassing right away by diving into Ranger. This is going to round out our character pretty well. It gives us some additional spell casting, and one of the only spells I might grab is Zephyr Strike, which allows us to dash through an enemy, dealing some extra damage and slashing at them with a weapon. The last thing you might want to be able to grab is maybe Hail of Thorns, because it allows you to shoot an enemy with a ranged weapon, and then damage splits off from them, dealing 1d10 piercing damage to every creature within 5 feet of them. But also at first level of Ranger, you get the feature Favored Enemy. So you always have the Hunter's Mark spell prepared as well, and you can cast it twice without expending a spell slot, which recharge on a short rest. The number of times that you can cast Hunter's Mark this way increases as you level up in Ranger. Also at first level of Ranger, you get a weapon mastery in 2 different weapons. So we're going to focus on the 2 main weapons that are used in Smash Bros. And the D&D equivalent of these are going to be a short bow, which gives you the weapon mastery Vex. So the next attack against a creature you hit with your short bow is going to have advantage. And then the other weapon we got to grab is scimitars. This is going to be super useful, especially in the early levels, because weapon mastery with scimitars gives us the weapon mastery feature Nick. And in Dungeons & Dragons post 2024, Nick allows us to use the extra attack of the light property, which would allow us to use our bonus action to attack with an offhand attack while dual wielding. Now you can include that as part of your attack, freeing up your bonus action, but still getting a benefit from dual wielding, meaning you have 2 attacks at level 2 and still have access to your bonus action for any spell casting or any other innate abilities you might want access to. But now that I have those main features out of the way, meaning you already have access to some form of extra attack when you want it, I want to dive back over to Cleric, because that's kind of the more important class for right now. Second level of Cleric gives you access to Channel Divinity, so you can access the power of your goddess and do some healing to people, or do some holy damage, or you can also turn undead, getting undead creatures to run away. Then at third level of Cleric, you get access to a Cleric subclass. And like I've already said plenty of times, you worship a goddess of light. She even becomes a playable fighter in Smash Bros. So becoming a Cleric of the light domain gives us access to some more spells, all of which being light or fire-based spells. We automatically get Burning Hands, Fairy Fire, Scorching Ray, and See Invisibility. We don't need a ton of crazy spell casting with this build, but we do get second level spells at this level. So there's a couple more I'd probably grab, like Hold Person, because that's always useful, paralyzing a creature, and as a more martial focused character, if you hit a creature with a melee attack while they're held by Hold Person, every attack is going to be a critical strike. Then to give us more of an arsenal for the variety of weapons you get in Kid Icarus and not just Smash Bros, we're going to grab Spiritual Weapon. I'm still disappointed in the update to Spiritual Weapon that happened after 2024, making it a concentration spell, but it's still worth having. It allows you to create a weapon that is more of a spiritual weapon. It deals force damage. It can be of any style that you'd like. It deals 1d8 damage plus your spellcasting modifier, and you can attack with it every bonus action after it's summoned into existence. The damage increases by 1d8 for every spell slot used above level 2. So even though we will be more of a dex focused build, some of the other weapons in Pit's arsenal, you might need to replicate them with Spiritual Weapon, because we don't have strength to grab a giant club or the easy cannon or any of the other ridiculous stuff. Also at third level of being a light cleric, you get the feature Radiance of the Dawn. So as a magic action, you can present your holy symbol and expend a use of your Channel Divinity, emitting a flash of light in a 30-foot emanation of you. Any magical darkness that's created by the darkness spell in that area is dispelled, and any creature of your choice must make a Constitution saving throw or take 2d8 radiant damage plus your cleric level. But if they succeed on a saving throw, they'd still take half damage. The last thing you get at third level of being a light cleric is Warding Flare. So when a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself makes an attack roll, you can take a reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack roll, causing light to flare before it hits and kind of blinding them a little bit and possibly making them miss. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. And speaking of your wisdom modifier, at fourth level of cleric, you get an ability score improvement. So here's our starting ability scores, focused mostly on dexterity, wisdom, and constitution. Dexterity for our more dex-based martial weapon attacks, as well as boosting our armor class because we're going to be relying on light armor, constitution for health, and wisdom for all of our cleric and ranger spellcasting. Then we're going to use an ability score improvement and boost up our dex and wisdom by 1 point each, rounding them both out. Then for next level, we're going to be jumping back over to ranger. Second level of ranger gives us deft explorer, giving us expertise and a skill proficiency if we want it, and we can learn some more languages. We'll just make sure we have celestial to talk to our goddess. But more importantly, we get a fighting style, and archery would be amazing here. It's honestly what I kind of prefer, but we're going to have other ways to boost up our archery a little later anyways, so I want to make sure to get the bigger bonus when we're swinging both scimitars simultaneously and get 2 weapon fighting. This is going to have a greater impact for melee weapons than the impact we would get with our archery, at least early on, because by getting 2-weapon fighting, we can now add our dexterity to our offhand attack, while archery would only boost our archery accuracy by 2 points. This boosts our overall damage much more considerably. Then at 3rd level of Ranger, we get to choose a Ranger subclass. I was very tempted to go with a Gloomstalker. This would give us another subclass to lean into Dark Pit, but I'd rather make sure I cover all my bases with both normal and Dark Pit at the same time. I think the best way to do that is by going with the Hunter subclass. This gives us the feature Hunter's Lore. So a creature under the effect of your Hunter's Mark spell, you immediately know their immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities. Then we get Hunter's Prey, allowing us to choose a particular style of our fighting. We have 2 choices after the update to this subclass. We can go with Colossus Slayer or Horde Breaker. Horde Breaker is usually more of a melee attack thing. It allows you to attack another creature within 5 feet of the original target that you attack. It can be used for ranged weapons as well, but the limitation of only being able to attack something within 5 feet of the original target does kind of feel limiting. And despite being able to spin our scimitar blades around very quickly in Smash Bros, in D&D, we already have the ability to attack with our offhand. So only being able to attack an additional creature if they happen to be near your original target doesn't feel quite as impactful. So instead, I'm going to go with Colossus Slayer. You do fight some big creatures on occasion, and I think that's pretty fitting. But this isn't only applicable to larger creatures. This gives you some boosted damage. So when you hit a creature with a weapon, the weapon deals an extra 1d8 damage if the target is already missing any hit points. So it's a consistent source of an extra 1d8 of damage. Then at 4th level of Ranger, we get another ability score improvement. So we're going to go ahead and just throw 2 points into Dexterity. 5th level of Ranger gives us extra attack. And that's what we really wanted. Now we can attack 3 times with our scimitars or 2 times with our bow. And we get access to 2nd level Ranger spells. So there's only one that might be able to be applicable for Pit, and that's probably Magic Weapon. It just gives us a way to boost up our weapon attacks, touching a non-magical weapon, turning it magical, and giving it a +1 bonus to its attack and damage rolls. This can be upcast to get a +2 bonus with any 3rd through 5th level spell slot, and boosted to a +3 with any 6th level or higher spell slot. Then at 6th level Ranger, your speed is boosted by 10 feet while you aren't wearing heavy armor. You also have a climb speed and a swim speed equal to your walking speed. Then 7th level of Ranger gives us the feature Defensive Tactics from being a hunter. And you get some choices here too. You can change this up every short or long rest, and you can either take multi-attack defense, so any creature that has multiple attacks has disadvantage on a follow-up attack against you, which can be very helpful for going up against Captain Falcon or any of the more quick attack type characters, because I know it's really annoying when certain characters just keep blasting me with laser pistols like Fox does, but I think with the quick float around nature that Pit has, Escape the Horde is going to be a better option. This makes it so all opportunity attacks have disadvantage against you. So it's useful against creatures that don't have multi-attack, making it have more of a broad scope. Then at 8th level of Ranger, we get another ability score improvement. So we're going to throw 2 points into Wisdom, which is our only spellcasting modifier. Speaking of that spellcasting, we're going to jump back over to the spellcasting levels. At 5th level of Cleric, we get access to 5th level Cleric spells, and thanks to being a light Cleric, this gives us Daylight and Fireball. And then I want to grab Spirit Shroud, which does boost up our damage by an extra 1d8, and that damage can be Radiant or Necrotic, depending on what version of Pit you want to go with. And you can upcast this to get an extra 1d8 for every 2 spell slots you upgraded by. And then Spirit Guardians. It's just a great spell, and it's always worth grabbing. It does an aura of damage around you that can be either 3d8 Radiant or Necrotic damage, boosted by an extra 1d8 for every level of upcast. You also get the feature Sear Undead. So when you use your Turn Undead feature, you can do some extra damage as well, with a number of d8s equal to your Wisdom modifier. 6th level of Cleric gives you improved Warding Flare, so your Warding Flare gets recharged on a short or long rest, and whenever you use your Warding Flare, you can give the target of the triggering attack a number of temporary hit points equal to 2d6 plus your Wisdom modifier. Then at 7th level of Cleric, you get Blessed Strikes. And you can choose to either have Potent Spellcasting, allowing you to add your Wisdom modifier to any of your Cleric cantrips, or Divine Strike, which is what we're going to use. This allows you to boost up the damage of your weapon attacks by an extra 1d8 necrotic or radiant damage. You can only do it once per turn, but that means that the arrows that you're shooting out can automatically glow with radiant damage, and you get access to 4th level spells. We'll grab Death Ward because it's always a safe bet to have 1 extra life, and Guardian of Faith to call down your Goddess of Light to help protect you. But thanks to being a light cleric, you also get Arcane Eye and Wall of Fire. 8th level of Cleric gives us another ability score improvement, so we're going to go ahead and max out our Wisdom, bringing it to 20. 9th level of Cleric gives us access to some more spells. On the light domain list, we get Flame Strike and Scrying. Flame Strike is pretty darn powerful, if I do say so myself. And from the actual spell list that we get to choose whatever we want, we're going to go with Commune, so you can actually talk to your goddess. Dawn for another big light that can shine down. And Holy Weapon, charging up your weapons with 2d8 radiant damage and possibly blinding targets. It's just generally pretty good. And then if you really need some help from your goddess, you can always go with Summon Celestial. It literally lets you summon a celestial being to assist you in battle. 10th level of Cleric can add to that even more though with Divine Intervention. This got a bit of a change from the older 2014 version. So in the 2024 version of D&D, now it just makes it so as a magic action, you can choose any cleric spell of 5th level or lower that doesn't require a reaction to cast. As part of the same action, you can cast that spell without expending a spell slot or needing any material components. You can only use this feature once per long rest, but there are some spells that are very long casting times, and this will allow you to transform that into just a normal magic action, and it makes it free. So if you use this right, you can kind of break things. 11th level of Cleric gives us access to 6th level spells. And there are some notable times where Pit actually just chows down a lot. So we're going to grab the spell Hero's Feast. It allows you to buff up yourself as well as the party by having a massive amount of food. And then for another light type of damaging spell, we'll also grab Sunbeam. Then at 12th level of Cleric, we get an ability score improvement. But this is 20th level overall, so we get to choose an epic boon. And if you want to let out a massive arrow strike, you can try and focus that into more of a very massive guiding bolt. And the best way to make it a large amount of damage is by taking the boon of Exquisite Radiance, which gives you 2 features. First, when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, it can't become undead, which is just a nice little bonus in case you're fighting a necromancer. But the more powerful ability is that when you make a damage roll that deals radiant damage, you can instead use the highest number possible for each damage die. You can only use this benefit once per long rest, so really use it wisely, but if you do it right, it can really deal some massive damage, and it feels fitting, like a sort of final smash for Pit in Smash Bros. But in general, that's how I would build Pit from Nintendo's Kid Icarus and Super Smash Bros. As a playable character in Dungeons & Dragons. If you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the comments and description down below. But if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button. And I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to let loose some light arrows, fly around the battlefield, and deal plenty of radiant damage as Pit in your D&D session. Also, I'm planning to try and build as many Smash characters as possible, as quickly as possible, so let me know if there's one that you want to see in the comments. But otherwise, there's another video that YouTube thinks you might like. Maybe it's another Smash video. I don't know what it's going to promote, but apparently it thinks you'll like this one, so feel free to check it out.